The weather forecast had called it a severe ice storm, but nothing could have prepared northern Michigan for what became the worst natural disaster in the region's history. By the third day of the storm, over 400,000 people were without power, temperatures had dropped to minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit, and families were facing a choice between freezing or burning furniture to stay warm. President Trump was in a crisis meeting at the White House when the full scope of the disaster became clear. FEMA Director Thompson spread aerial photographs across the Oval Office desk, showing a landscape that looked more like a war zone than the American heartland. "Mr. President," Thompson began grimly, "we have entire communities that have been without power for 72 hours. The ice is so thick that repair crews can't get to the down power lines. We're looking at potentially weeks before full restoration." Trump studied the images: ice-covered trees that had crushed homes, power lines that looked like broken spider webs, and roads that were impassable sheets of ice. "How many people are we talking about, and what do they need right now?" "Sir, conservative estimates put it at nearly 500,000 Americans in immediate danger. They need shelter, heat, food, and medical supplies. But the infrastructure damage is so severe that normal supply chains have completely broken down." What Trump didn't know was that at that very moment, 300 miles away in the small town of Grayling, Michigan, 8-year-old Sarah Patterson was sitting in a dark, freezing house, writing a letter by candlelight while her breath formed small clouds in the frigid air. The Patterson family, Sarah, her 16-year-old brother Jake, and their father Mark had been huddled together in their living room for 3 days, burning whatever they could find to keep warm. Mark, a single father since his wife's death from cancer 2 years earlier, was trying to stay strong for his children, but the situation was becoming desperate. "Daddy," Sarah whispered, her small fingers barely able to hold the pencil in the cold, "is President Trump going to help us?" Mark looked at his daughter, her face pale and her lips slightly blue despite the heavy blankets wrapped around her. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I hope so." Sarah continued writing her letter, the same one she had been working on for 2 days. "Dear President Trump, my name is Sarah, and I live in Michigan. It's really cold here, and we don't have any lights or heat. My daddy is trying really hard to keep us warm, but I think he's scared too. Can you please help us? I promise we are good people." Meanwhile, in Washington, Trump was demanding more information. "I want to know exactly what these families are going through. Not statistics, not reports. I want to know about real people." Director Thompson hesitated. "Sir, we have field reports, but they're pretty devastating." "Read them to me." Thompson opened a folder and began reading incident reports that painted a picture of American families in crisis. Elderly people being found unconscious from hypothermia, families burning books and furniture to create heat, parents going without food so their children could eat their dwindling supplies. "This one came in an hour ago," Thompson continued. "A single father in Grayling, Michigan, was found by neighbors trying to chop up his kitchen table to burn for warmth. His 2 children, ages 8 and 16, haven't had a hot meal in 3 days. Trump stood up abruptly. "Get me the governor of Michigan on the phone. Now!" While his staff scrambled to make the connection, Trump walked to the window overlooking the south lawn, where the winter sun was shining and the temperature was a manageable 35 degrees. He tried to imagine what it would be like to watch his own children suffer in minus 15-degree weather with no power, no heat, and no way to get help. Governor Williams came on the line within minutes. "Mr. President, thank you for calling. The situation here is becoming critical. We've opened emergency shelters, but many people can't reach them because the roads are impassable. Governor, I need you to be completely honest with me. What do you need, and how fast do you need it?" "Sir, we need federal assistance on a scale we've never requested before. Emergency generators, heating units, food supplies, medical teams, and probably most importantly, we need federal emergency funds to completely rebuild our power grid. We're looking at damage in the hundreds of millions of dollars." Trump was quiet for a moment, processing the magnitude of what was being requested. "Governor, if I approved a $50 million federal emergency aid package right now, could you start getting help to these families today?" There was silence on the other end of the line. $50 million, Mr. President? That would change everything. We could have mobile warming centers operational within hours, emergency food distribution points set up, and medical teams deployed to check on the most vulnerable residents. Then consider it approved. I'll have the paperwork signed within the hour." Back in Grayling, the Patterson family was facing their darkest hour. Mark had burned everything he could safely burn, and the temperature inside their house had dropped to just above freezing. Jake was showing signs of mild hypothermia, and Sarah had stopped shivering, which Mark knew was a dangerous sign. "Daddy," Sarah said weakly, "I finished my letter to President Trump. Do you think he'll get it?" Mark took the crumpled piece of paper, written in a child's careful handwriting, and felt his heart break. His little girl still believed that someone would come to help them, even when he was beginning to lose hope himself. "Let's put it in the mailbox," he said, knowing that mail service had been suspended for days. But if it gave Sarah hope, it was worth the cold walk to the end of their driveway. As they bundled up in every piece of clothing they owned and made their way to the mailbox, they heard something that seemed impossible, the sound of heavy vehicles approaching. Through the ice-covered trees, they could see a convoy of trucks with Federal Emergency Management markings, followed by National Guard vehicles carrying generators and heating units. Sarah grabbed her father's hand. "Daddy, look! Help is coming!" Within hours, mobile warming centers were set up throughout northern Michigan. Emergency food distribution points were operational, and medical teams were going door to door checking on residents. The $50 million in federal aid that Trump had approved was being deployed with military efficiency. But perhaps the most remarkable part of the response was what happened when the first emergency coordinator, Captain Martinez, knocked on the Patterson family's door. "Are you Mark Patterson?" she asked, checking her clipboard. "Yes, ma'am. How did you know to come here?" Captain Martinez smiled. "Sir, President Trump specifically asked us to check on a single father in Grayling with 2 children, ages 8 and 16. He said there was a family here that represented what this whole operation was about: Americans helping Americans in their time of greatest need." Sarah stepped forward shyly. "Did President Trump get my letter?" Captain Martinez knelt down to Sarah's level. "Sweetheart, President Trump may not have gotten your specific letter, but somehow he knew exactly what you needed. And he made sure we came to help." Over the following weeks, the federal response to the Michigan ice storm became a model for disaster relief. The $50 million in aid helped restore power to hundreds of thousands of homes, provided emergency shelter and food for families in need, and began the process of rebuilding the damaged infrastructure. But for the Patterson family, the aid meant something even more significant. It meant that their government had not forgotten them in their darkest hour. It meant that somewhere in Washington, D.C., someone understood that behind every disaster statistic was a real family, facing real fear, needing real help. 3 months later, when power had been restored and life had returned to normal, Sarah received an unexpected package. Inside was a letter on White House stationery that read, "Dear Sarah, I heard that a very brave little girl in Michigan wrote me a letter during the ice storm. While I may not have received your original letter, your courage and your father's strength represent the very best of America. Enclosed is a small token of my appreciation for reminding me why we serve. Stay warm and keep writing letters. Sincerely, President Donald Trump." Inside the package was a White House snow globe and a new set of colored pencils. Sarah immediately sat down to write another letter. Dear President Trump, thank you for helping my family when we were so cold and scared. You are a good president because you remember that there are kids like me who need help sometimes. I will always remember that you cared about us. Your friend, Sarah. The Michigan ice storm response became one of the most successful federal disaster relief efforts in recent history, but its true success wasn't measured in dollars spent or generators deployed. It was measured in the restored faith of families like the Pattersons, who learned that even in America's darkest hours, hope could arrive in the form of help from neighbors they had never met, coordinated by leaders who understood that serving the country meant serving its people. And somewhere in the White House, President Trump kept Sarah's thank you letter on his desk as a reminder that sometimes the most important decisions a leader makes are the ones that help a father keep his children warm on the coldest night of the year.